So, in terms of the response that we have as peers, I think it's really become very important to characterize what makes it different than other responses. I mean, there's trauma-specific care that's more treatment-oriented, but there's trauma-informed relationships that really focus on the whole person, the whole relationship, the community, if you will. And so, over time and practice, kind of whittled it down to 3 basic principles that I think are worth talking about and also worth thinking about in terms of evaluation, which we can talk about later. So the first principle is a focus on learning as opposed to helping. And we'll spend some time with each individual things. But just to jumpstart it a little bit, what's the difference for you between coming into a situation with the intention of helping versus the intention of learning? I did this workshop once long ago when I was still kind of a little outspoken and a little insensitive, really. And I started the training with something like saying, if you're here to make a difference, please leave. And, you know, I didn't mean to be obnoxious about it, honestly. But so many people, and for all good reasons, for all reasonable reasons, people want to come into this field to make a difference. But if you think about that, it often comes with an agenda attached. I want to see changes in you based on what I do. So it can get us really trapped. So we pay attention to, in our training, a focus on learning together as opposed to focusing on one of us helping the other. The second principle that I like to talk about is a focus on the relationship versus the individual. This is actually very complex, and we'll probably spend the most time on this. A focus on the individual is what a service system does. It measures your changes. It doesn't measure how we change together. It looks at your progress and your healing and your recovery as opposed to what's happening in our relationship that's growing difference for both of us. And I think, given that peer support is about mutuality and about the kinds of relationships that we do that are different, it's really going to be tremendously important to think across the board in terms of a focus on the relationship and the qualities of relationship that enhance mutual growth and learning possibilities. And finally, there's a focus on responding out of hope versus reacting out of fear. And again, we'll spend a little bit of time on that in a little bit. But our system has become so risk aversive that, you know, the first question that any of us get asked in any kind of treatment context is, are you safe? What does that question really mean? I think cynically, when I think about the question, are you safe, I think what's underneath that is, are you going to do anything that scares me and makes me uncomfortable that I have to worry about for the rest of the day? And so it's really an estimation of how uncomfortable are you going to make me? And then what are we going to do about that so that I don't have to be uncomfortable? I mean, I know that's a really cynical response, but to be honest with you, we as peers do it almost as often as I've heard it done to me in provider situations. We've learned how we operate with each other from what's happened to us.